the Ice Spice stuff afterwards was kind of crazy. Um, you know, but that was kind of, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Talking about my sister was a you guys saw a very edited version of it. I was a disaster talking about her. It was very, very emotional. And they definitely did me a favor by editing it down. Um, that was a crazy moment. I'm not a super emotional person, and to sob on international TV was a lot. Um, but those are a couple of like main things that kind of stand out for me. Yeah.
Because you're yeah, what I felt like, I felt bad for you in a lot of ways, because obviously on the on the actual show, you there was a few moments where, because you didn't get any of like the, the badges or whatever, and so, and you
Right.
sort of, you talked, there was a moment where I couldn't tell whether it was editing or
Okay,
whether
that was a bad moment also. Yes.
yeah, one of the moments I remember is there was that thing where they were talking about alliances, and I think it came out that there was some alliances, and you seemed like a bit upset that you didn't realize, you felt like a bit shafted, perhaps, that you didn't get back. Was that editing, or did you genuinely feel like that?
I did feel that way. I did feel that way. There was even a moment where like Deja that is off camera is like crying. She comes into like the workroom and she's crying and all this stuff. And I was one of the first ones to go to her and comfort her and kind of talk her down from it. And there was a moment with Olivia because she had a death in her family, and I definitely knew that how that felt, and I comforted her. And I just but when it they started giving out badges, I remember either Deja or Olivia one was like, this person was there for me and this and that. And I was just kind of like, okay, yes, but if that is the reason, that's actually not how that happened. You know what I mean? So I was a little disappointed, but you know what? It is what it is. I was definitely frustrated. And there is definitely a moment that I get very irritated. And I had to remind myself that I'm also there to make television. There was one of the storyline producers, she really wanted me to explode. And I just I think at the end of the day, I had to leave that show and come home to my life. And I just was not going to explode and show my ass on for them to have a TV show. At the end of the day, that's I have to come home and live my life. Um, you know, and they get to have the ratings for it. But it wouldn't have changed the the end result. It would have gave good drama, but it wouldn't have changed the end result. And eh, okay, so then why am I going to show my ass on international TV if it's not going to change the end result? So, they really tried to get that out of me. And I remember being like, I'm not going to give you guys the television moment that you want. And, I kind of stayed over. And, when we're tucking and doing all that kind of stuff, they obviously can't film you. And I just kind of stayed over to the side and was like doing my thing. And, you know, um, I know they wanted me to explode, but I couldn't do it.
Well, one of the what you mentioned, so I was going to bring this up because you mentioned Ice Spice. Now, I
Mhm.
thought we'll just get into that quickly, but so in one of the in obviously the episode that she was guest judging in, she made a comment where she basically said,
I hear you're a legendary icon, but tonight I don't think I would have been able to tell with how shy you were.
Okay. Yep. Great. Smile and nod. Okay. Yep.
after
Right.
that happened, you then posted a few things on social media saying
Yeah.
basically like, I don't need confirmation from someone like that whose most famous
Yeah.
song is about farting or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do
Which is
you
why, going back to what we said earlier about me not posting, this is why I don't do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think like, because some people like, I think some people agreed with you on it, and then other people were like, oh, I think maybe you misinterpreted how she meant it or whatever. So
Yeah.
that how how do you feel about it now? Like, are you glad that you did speak up on it because that's how you genuinely feeling, or do you kind of regret saying that sort of thing?
I'll be honest with you. And I know, trust me when I've done interviews, and they always ask me about this situation. People are always like, it really wasn't that big of a deal. Phoenix is making it such a big deal. It it wasn't a big deal. So the reality of it is this: when I am on stage, you guys are seeing, what you're seeing on TV. We're on a set, and I'm on the far end. Ice Spice is way down here. Ice Spice speaks very, very softly. I am wearing thick latex across my entire face. So I am really not hearing a word that she's saying. Like, and that is legit. I'm not hearing a word that she's saying. Even when I walk off, that's when I find out that she's reading me. I actually said to Irene, I was like, I couldn't hear a fucking word Ice Spice said. So Irene was like, girl, it's a good thing because she read you. And I was like, what did she say? And they were like, girl, we're going to the film Untucked. We do that. That's why I'm nice to Ice Spice then, because at the time, I don't even know what she has said. I did not know what she said until we watched it at press week. That was the first time I actually heard what she said. And, I think I misunderstood her thought, but I'll also say when it aired, let's see, it first aired, I guess, Thursday at like midnight here, or whatever it is when you could finally watch it. Well, I woke up Friday and I had all these messages like, curve, this and that, you girl, da, 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 like, people being on my side. So I just threw out some shade. You know what I mean? That's literally all I did is I threw out some shade at it. It really wasn't supposed to be that big of a deal. And then I threw that out on Friday. Saturday when I woke up, the world went crazy. And people that are like it wasn't that big of a deal, you guys aren't following it the way I was following, the way I was getting tagged and everything. It went viral, it went everywhere. There were blogs like pop culture, music blogs, like literally around the world talking about this. And it really went crazy. But I think the main reason that I regret it, for one, like I I definitely like did not mean to insult Ice Spice because I really do think that I just kind of misinterpreted. I think other people did. They kind of, but also the fandom kind of pushed me into kind of saying something. They poke and prod me, and I did it. And because, like I said, it really wasn't supposed to be that big of a deal. But I think the main reason that I regret it was because I had people and this is such a take on how toxic, not all the fandom, but how toxic and nasty the fandom can be. Is I had people saying to me, multiple people, said, like one guy in particular, or one person in particular said something like, if I see you in person, it's on site. This is why your sister died. I had like three different situations where people talked about my sister. That was a nasty, nasty, inhumane comment to make. And that is one of the reasons. I mean, I'll be honest, when I had those, I regretted going on All Stars altogether. And I actually had said at that time that I will never do anything with Drag Race again after that. Because look, you can say stuff about me all day long. I am a grown man. But when you start talking about my deceased sister and the trauma that me and my sister and went through is just over a drag television show, you're a sick individual. You're a sick individual. Like, it's a drag competition show. You know, get it, get a life, get a life. And I think that was the only reason why I regretted saying something. It still pisses me off. It really does, because it was just like, it really, when I got the first one, I was like, what the hell, and I remember calling and like talking to like Detox and talking to a couple people about it, and you know, it really hit hard. Yeah, it hit hard.
Well, I am.
Yeah.
That is insane. I'm so sorry that you got, because yeah, I mean the fandom. Unfortunately, there are people that are genuinely crazy and send like death
Yeah.
threat. But to bring up people to say like that is or
Yeah.
that is unacceptable. I think you talking about your sister was a really lovely moment in the sense that because so many people can relate to that. Like everyone has probably lost someone in their lives and they can relate to that.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame that someone took that and twisted it.